Welcome to the Feed the Soul Company podcast, a space I've created to share my story and to encourage you to share yours. I'm your host, Liv Setla, and I can't thank you enough for being here. With me today is special guest Hannah Grant. Hannah Grant to me is like a big sister. We went to the same high school together, and even though I didn't get to play with her, she was a couple years older than me, but my sister got to play with her. But I've always just looked up to her, and through the course of life and some things that have happened in both of our lives, we've just become really close family friends. And honestly, I've just always looked up to her, so I'm so excited that she's here with us today. But she's a University of Michigan alumni, and she was the libero there for 4 years. Some of her accolades, guys, she's a stud. I know we say like, okay, when you're done, it's not gonna matter, but I think like Hannah did some pretty incredible things on and off the court. But just to highlight her as an athlete, um, starting off before she even got to college, she for 2018, she was an AAU All-American, a USAV All-American. Then her redshirt sophomore year in 2021 made academic All Big Ten and the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week, August 30th. And honestly, okay, before I even keep going, these are just some of the highlights. Like Hannah, I sent her the list of all of her accolades. She has way more, but these are just some of the things that she wanted to highlight. And I think it's really cool because some of these are more about being a part of that team and not the individual ones. Like she led U of M with 44 serving aces her junior year in 2022, averaged 4.43 digs per set, ranking third in the Big Ten. In the Big Ten, like, are you kidding me? Again, in that year, she was CSC Academic All District, Big Ten Distinguished Scholar, Academic All Big Ten, AVCA All North Region Honorable Mention, All Big Ten Second Team, and in her redshirt senior year, she served on the team's three-member leadership committee. So just such a great presence on and off the court. That's a little bit about Hannah, but Hannah, introduce yourself to the podcast.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. So excited to be on here talking to you. Wish I could be in person hugging you, but Hannah Grant, like Livy said, went to University of Michigan, played volleyball there. I'm now living in Atlanta, hot Atlanta, like they like to say. And now I'm working in the real world. Super weird. But yeah, happy to be on.
Oh, okay. So, first of all, I wanted to get you on this podcast because there's so much about your story that's super important, and I just can't wait for you to share. But I just want to start off since you are kind of in the space of life that I'm going to be transitioning to, starting with the athletic side. Like, hey, she's been a D1 athlete all 4 years. Now she's in the real world working. I just first wanted to ask kind of what did that transition look like for you coming out of college?
Yeah, it's definitely a transition, especially with playing sports in college. It's kind of all you know, so it's almost like an identity of yours, and you have so much structure in your life, and you're not really having to create that structure, right? Like you go to practice, you go to class, this is when you eat, like it's so structured out. I think that was the biggest difference for me, transitioning out of college and just being like, okay, you can do whatever you want. You can go wherever you want, you can work, you can do anything you really want. There is no one really telling you what you can and can't do. And I thought that was the kind of the weirdest thing ever, like creating your own structure, figuring out kind of who you are, what you like, without that kind of identity of volleyball and someone telling you like this is what you have to do. So it's definitely a really interesting journey and I'm still on it, still kind of trying to figure out what's best for me, what's my routine, what's my structure that I like. But I think that was like the biggest kind of difference and change.
I love that. And I love hearing you talk about it because again, as my big sister, it's like I know it's coming. I'm a senior. I graduate this next spring and it's coming up, but it's like, ooh, it's coming up kind of quick. So just hearing you talk about the difference, it's like, okay, it's gonna happen, but it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. And it's hard for everyone, but you always got me, right?
Yeah,
I'll be
for sure.
whatever.
Absolutely. Okay, my first question for you, is if I were to Google Hannah Grant, what's something that wouldn't come up? Not something you'll typically see. You'll see all the accolades, all the years at Michigan, but something that's important to you in your story.
Yeah, I think, and this is like my fun fact every single time someone asks me, which is funny. But the first 8 years of my life, I actually moved every single year. And a lot
Mhm.
of people say, like, oh, military, like, no, my dad worked for Ford and we just had to
Oh,
move every year. Like, I don't really know why. It just kind of worked like that. But I think that was especially like an important part of my life because I was put in a lot of situations that I was very uncomfortable. I mean, I went to a new school every year, having to meet friends, having to put myself out there, be the new kid. Definitely, my ability to kind of adapt and be out of my comfort zone from such a young age, I think really helped me as I have grown up, just being in hard situations or having to, communicate with people that you're not close with. So I think that really helped me. A lot. And now that I like kind of reflect on it, I'm like, I don't know how I would be if I didn't have that experience. I think I'm like an extrovert and an introvert, but I think I would be extremely introverted if like I was not put in that case. So I'm really thankful for it, although it was hard. I think there's a lot of positives that came out of it.
I really like that. I want to talk about that a little bit more just because I can relate a little bit. I mean, I didn't move a ton, but I just had that big move from California to Michigan in like middle school. And just I can relate to that experience. Like, okay, it got me out of my comfort zone. I was forced to do different things. And also being an introvert and extrovert, I can also relate to that. Just kind of like having to put yourself in situations because it's good for you, but also very uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's a time and place where I want to like hang out and do things, and there's also time and place where I'm like, don't talk to me.
Mm-mm, yeah, I'm good. I'm good by
Yeah,
myself, chilling.
yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting. Okay, so then, okay, you moved a lot when you were a kid. That kind of helped you get out of your comfort zone. Give us an example of something that you maybe now are like, okay, yeah, I can see why that helped me in this situation today.
I would probably say just being able to communicate with people in like hard situations. So for example, I mean, as a child, as a middle schooler, I middle school is brutal, right? Like you girls, guys, whatever, they're brutal. So I would say like meeting friends and whatnot, I like all the way from that side, but then all the way to like I mean, I moved clubs, volleyball clubs, my junior to senior or my sophomore to junior year. And it was like a big decision. And my parents were like, get on the phone, call your coach, like call him. Like, I'm not helping you, call him. And I was like the only person as I don't even know how old I was that would call the coach and be like, listen, I'm leaving and kind of had that accountability, which was extremely hard. Trust me, I didn't want to do it. But looking back, like it's so valuable all the way up to when I was at Michigan State my freshman year and decided it wasn't for me and I needed to going in to my coach alone saying I'm leaving. Like that is extremely hard. Like it was extremely hard, but I think, if I didn't have the experience I had, I don't think it would have gone as well or I don't think I would have been as confident as I was walking into her office. So
Yeah, okay, let's get into that now. You mentioned having to leave Michigan State. Tell us more about that aspect of your story.
yeah, it feels like forever ago. And honestly, I kind of forget about it. But yeah, it was extremely hard. So back then, the rules for recruiting weren't really existent. So I actually got recruited in eighth grade. And in any eighth grader that sees a school wants them is goo goo gaga, right? Like I need to go there. So very thankful that the rules have kind of been put into place and you can't get recruited as an eighth grader anymore. But
Yeah.
so I think I committed my freshman year or beginning of sophomore year, not sure. But I was really young and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't like you go to school to eventually probably get a job, right? So I didn't really know what I wanted to do academically. I kind of was just looking at it's a big school and it's close to home. I want to go there.
Mhm.
May I add, I grew up as a huge Michigan fan. So my dad played basketball at Michigan Dearborn. So huge Michigan family. So family wasn't very happy. But anyways, so I went there and it just wasn't the right fit. It wasn't a I wasn't very happy with my experience. I went in, I ended up redshirting. They wanted to split me and this girl up time wise so she could finish, and then I'd have 4 years to kind of come in and play. So with that, I mean, I'm truly thankful because I got a full season of just practicing, which I think really did help, but it was just challenging. I didn't feel like it was the right fit. So I had to go have a really, really hard conversation. And I look back at it and I'm so thankful I did it. But I mean, it was hard. It was really hard telling the team, telling the coaches, transitioning. Michigan is a weird university where you can't come in the middle of the year. So I ended up having to go home, take community college classes that would transfer into Michigan, lost about 10 credits from Michigan State. So, I mean, it was very hard, but I'm very thankful I did it.
Thank you for sharing that. I remember hearing about you going to Michigan and obviously I knew like, okay, like awesome, like because you'd grown up a Michigan family and love your dad, like our dad just connected on being Michigan fans so deeply. So I was like, oh yeah, like University of Michigan. But then I didn't know like the behind the scenes kind of where you had to go back home for a little bit, take those community college credits. And I think I'm glad you shared that because I bet there's a ton more athletes out there that are going through a similar experience or redshirting or some struggles with that. Do you have any advice for people who are redshirting or transferring any in that realm? Any advice for them going through that?
Yeah, it's actually funny you say that. I actually had a girl call me the other day that's a friend of a friend that's considering redshirting, and I was giving her this advice of, a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're redshirting, you're not good enough." And it's like, first of all, people don't know the back ends of like why you're redshirting. So, first of all, don't listen to anyone else. No one else knows your story. No one really knows what's going on with you or your life, like in general in life. But I was like, don't ignore all of that and take it as like an opportunity to grow, to learn. Like, I mean, I had a full year, no pressure. You're never going to play in a game. Like, go practice. You can do whatever you want in practice. You can try a bunch of new things because you don't have to play in the game. Like, there are no really stakes. So, like, take it as an opportunity to grow and get better for that full year. And then you come in as a freshman and you have a full year of experience behind you. So, I really think it's kind of a leg up in some situations. Obviously, some people may not want to and whatnot, but I say take it and run because it's a really cool opportunity to be able to get better in a year and then still be a freshman when these freshmen come in, have no experience. So that's definitely my biggest advice for redshirting. And then for transferring, just stick to your gut. Like stick to your gut, have the hard conversations. Yeah, that would be my biggest kind of advice. Ask a million questions, stay curious. Unfortunately, in today's world, we have a lot of people that are gonna they want you to come, so they're gonna say and do whatever to get you to come. And so having those conversations with a million people to really figure out, is this gonna be a good fit for you is really important.
I love that. Thank you, Hannah, for sharing that. I know because some of my teammates, even right now, redshirting or this conversation of redshirting is, again, different for each individual, and it's not a lot what people think. So
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. I know a lot of people are probably going to appreciate that advice.
Absolutely.
So we've just talked about kind of your experience going from Michigan State to Michigan. Can you tell us maybe a little bit about some other challenges you faced and then how you overcame them?
Yeah, so most recently, January 2023, yeah. My mom's life was taken from domestic violence actually in the middle of spring season. So, kind of had to work through that obviously, but it's funny just knowing me, and you're probably going to laugh at this. The day after, the day after when we were kind of released from the police station, I went right to practice and I told everyone, like, just act like it's another day. Like it's another day. I'm playing. Don't act different towards me. I just want to play volleyball.
Mhm.
So I just think that's kind of funny. So I just went right back into it. And it was the thing that I knew what to do. I knew how to do it. And it was just easy. I could just go in, turn my mind off and play volleyball. Um, it got to the point though where I was pushing through and avoiding, there's actually a really big
thing
situation
that just
issue
happened.
that just happened. Like I can't just keep avoiding this and going and playing volleyball. I'm sure you can relate to that in a little degree of that. But so I just went on and I played volleyball. I went to school. I did everything normal and I kind of just tried to avoid confronting, this big life event that happened to me. So, long story short, I just pushed through. I did everything. I ran a business with my sister. That was my mom's business. I went to school. I played volleyball. Like I don't really looking back and I don't know how I did it. But so I was playing and we got to spring season and we started playing games and I think it was our second or third game. And I was feeling really weird before the game. And I remember telling one of my teammates, like, I just like don't really feel like I don't know. I just don't feel right. I don't feel normal. And they're all probably like, yeah, like no shit. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm fine. Like, I don't know what's going on. Whatever. So we're at Boston and I played the game and I like fully dissociated. So I don't remember like at all the game. I don't remember playing. Like it was just muscle memory. Like I just knew how to play volleyball. I just did it. And I remember after the game, I pulled one of my teammates into like the hotel bathroom, like not like in your hotel bathroom, because one of like I had a roommate, obviously. I like went outside and like met her in the hotel bathroom. I remember sitting on the sink and I go, okay, I gotta tell you something. Like, I don't remember what happened. Like, I know I don't really think I played well, but like, did we won, right? Like what happened?
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like then where I was like, okay, like I probably need to face what's going on. So that was like a big, obviously life event and challenge, but having to having that realization of like, okay, my mind and body are not working together now. Like I need to step away. So that was a really big challenge. So I called my coach like 4 days later after having like a million conversations with people and was like, listen, like I need to step away. Like this isn't good. Like I'm not good. So I had went right to therapy and learned what dissociating was and blacking out was like somewhat of a normal thing with trauma situations and whatnot. So that was a huge challenge of just putting myself first. Like it's volleyball, like it's a game. It's really important, obviously, as collegiate athletes. It's basically an identity of yours, but at the end of the day, like you need to put yourself first.
Mhm.
Um, so that was a huge change. I was out. I didn't know if I was going to come back. All I knew is I needed to get help. I needed to work through a lot of things. And so it's really interesting. I was like obviously a part of the team, but I was fully kind of separated because I needed to figure out, how to help myself and how to get better. Um, so I just told my coach, I don't know, we're going to go day by day. I might come watch. So I think it was like a month I was off and, going to therapy 2 or 3 times a week and really kind of trying to figure it out all while going to school and everything. I didn't like stop that. So it was just very interesting. I learned how to kind of like lead and support teammates without being there, being in the game, checking up for a period of time. I've always played. Like I've been very lucky to play on every team I've been on. So it was really awesome to be able to be on the bench and, watch all the girls that I've seen grow for the past 4 years play. And it was a really, really cool experience. And I actually continued to get better, putting myself first. And I actually came back. I think it was like the last fourth of the season. I played in like 4 games. And I actually was one of my favorite moments is I DS'd. It was the first game I came back. And of course, I'm like, I haven't even been here. Like, I don't deserve to be playing. Like, these girls have been working their ass off. Like, I don't deserve to be on the court. Like, I would hate if someone did that for me. Like, no, I shouldn't be on there. And so my coach and I had a long talk and we're like, all right, let's have you DS for 1 game and then we can see how it goes. So it was like my favorite thing. I like DS first time ever in my entire life DSing. It was like amazing. Um, so yeah, that was obviously a huge thing, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I know I probably blabbed on, and I don't know if I made a lot of sense, but that was a big one.
Oh, all of it, like you definitely make sense, first of all. And I do have a ton of questions I want to ask you about. Starting off, I just wanted to say, like, wow, like I don't think people realize the magnitude. Like you talk about it with such growth and resilience, and like this happened and this is how I moved through it. And I think that's so admirable because a lot of people, this happened what, last year, like this
Yeah.
or something like that. It doesn't like that doesn't happen for a lot of people. So first of all, like I'm just in awe of like how you speak of it. Then this is on top of being a starter at Michigan. So this is not just like, okay, I'm juggling one or two things and on top of running the business that your mom had with your sister. So there's layers on layers on this. So it's like you're trying to navigate a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like this is like huge. So I'm so glad we got to talk about this. But my first question is having the role you had on your team, did you feel any kind of pushback or how were your teammates and coaches? How did they respond to you when you're like, I need to take a step for me first for my health?
Yeah, that's a great question, and definitely something I look back. Like, my coach was just phenomenal. First of all, Erin Virtue is was the new she came in my last year, and I mean, I just remember her calling her. She's like, "Do what you got to do. Like, we can take this day by day. We can take this week by week." And I think in a certain degree, people were happy because I think they can obviously, when you're on the outside of it, you're like, this girl just went through something that people sometimes will never even have to ever deal with, see like anything. And she needs like, why is she acting normal?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sure, people were very like, good, like you should,
Take
but
that time.
yeah, exactly. But she was just like, anything you need, anything I can do, just let me know. So, I mean, from my coaching staff, just phenomenal. I had no pressure. Obviously, they probably were like, crap, this is a position that we were locked in, an experienced person and whatnot, but none of that affected anything that they kind of verbalized, or they were just there for me, and that was like a huge, huge part of just being able to kind of lead my own journey. And then the girls, same thing, like absolutely phenomenal. I had no pushback. Everyone was more than happy to see me kind of go get help. And I think that kind of goes to the same pedigree of, I'm sure they were probably like, she like, what is going on? How is she
Yeah.
doing this? So yeah, really no pushback. So super, super, super supportive. And it was just really cool to go back and like be in the role. Cause when I first went back, I was like, I'm not dressing. I'm just gonna stand there and I'm gonna see how I feel. Cause it was really just kind of figuring out what I can tolerate and getting my mind and body to kind of work together. So yeah, all in all, like every person that I, was around was extremely supportive and helped me get through. I don't know what I would do if it was the opposite of that.
I'm really glad to hear that because obviously the life of a demon athlete, like this coaching teammates, you hear like horror stories of how
Oh,
something like this could have not been that way. So I'm really glad that that was your experience and that's how that went for you.
yeah.
Um, Another thing I wanted to ask you is, so you had to kind of take time away, be in therapy, see how you felt. What are some things, and mentioned dissociating and
Yeah.
feeling like, okay, I'm not here. I don't remember things at all. Like I think um, some athletes, I guess, going through day-to-day life, it's like, okay, we have moments where we zone out. Moments we're not obviously not present every single time, but can you talk about a little bit more of that difference of like, okay, I just blacked out, and then what you learned maybe in therapy. Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So something I really never knew. And honestly, I was terrified. Like after that game, when I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, this is scary. And later I realized, it's a pretty normal thing for people that deal with traumatic situations. And it's more on the trauma side. I think grief and trauma kind of are separate. But when you put them together, obviously it's magnitude. With anything, anxiety, depression, whatnot, it's amplified obviously when you add them together. Um, but really with traumatic situations, if you're not kind of working through your emotions, which I am getting better at, still getting better at,
Yeah.
used to be horrible at, you build up. It's not like it can go away. You're kind of just building your capacity to deal with it. So, something that I always kind of try to explain it as is if this is your, size of your grief or whatnot, it's going to be in a cup, but your cup is just going to get bigger, not the size of whatever it is. So, in that sense, is you're just kind of growing capacity to deal with whatever you're dealing with. So when I was kind of just going on with day-to-day life and just getting stuff done, I was not making room. I was not building my capacity. I might have actually been shrinking my capacity. So there becomes a point where your mind is so occupied, where your mind and body are just disconnected. Like your body's doing things and your mind, like they're just not working together. And so I learned that that was a way of kind of your body going in like a self-defense mode, like protecting you from everything that's going on in your emotions. It's kind of like a fight or flight situation. So yeah, I learned a lot about that. I learned it's okay to dissociate, but let's kind of lessen. So really kind of tracking the amount of times. And I mean, this happened when I was out in social situations or sometimes when I was in the classroom and someone's making jokes about domestic violence or someone getting shot. Like there's just triggering things that happen with trauma and whatnot, and every person is different, every experience is different, but just learning how to build your capacity, learning what's going on, why this is happening, kind of talking through those things was really important, really hard, and it's still hard, but the more you can kind of educate it and normalize it, and that's why I think this podcast is absolutely amazing because people are able to communicate and normalize a lot of hard things that they go through in life. But the more things are talked about, the more people are aware of that girl walking down the street that looks really normal actually had something horrible happen to her. Like a lot of people don't know that. So kudos to this podcast. But yeah, learned a lot. So yeah.
I'm just like taking in everything you're saying right now. Like I'm so like happy to be learning all this and hearing this from you. Is there anything else you want to just share about the experience with your mom, what you've learned, any or maybe anything to the listeners like, hey, um, how do you support someone in this situation or something like that? Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, that's huge. And it's honestly something that I've kind of learned too. Like, how do I want to be supported? How do I allow people to support me? I think that was the biggest one for me is just allowing people to help me, and being vulnerable and needing help. That's something that I've never done. I'm insanely independent and I've always been very independent. And I think um someone I always relied on was my mom, obviously. So you take that out of the picture and I'm even more independent. So it kind of gives that kind of backfired on me of being, opening my hands and, allowing support. But I think the biggest thing is I guess the biggest advice I would give is just to communicate. Communicate. I've had some friends that are like, listen, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help you. I don't know what to say. I don't know what's going to trigger you, but like, can we talk through this? I'm sorry if this is triggering, but this is how I'm feeling. Like, I respected those people more than the people that went mute or didn't say anything or um would think they were saying something and it was actually extremely triggering. I'm sure you can like relate to that.
Yeah.
Um so just having that open communication and being honest. Like I started an Instagram for a while and would just post random things and people are like, "Oh my gosh, like that's what like that happens to her." So I'm just going to give a random example, but like walking around, like I still get like super scared for sometimes and like think someone's gonna shoot me sometimes. And like that sounds crazy, but that's just like a normal thing that sometimes happens to me. And like no one would you would never think that. So it's just like certain things trigger me. So I've had to like communicate with some of my friends, like, listen, if I'm being super weird, like this might be why. So just communicating is huge and being okay with not knowing what to do. I still don't know what to do like half the time. So like really just being open and like being okay with being on the journey of not really knowing what to do. And I think that kind of coincides with this period of life I'm in. So um thankful in the way that I've had to experience that prior to being in this part of my life because I feel like it's kind of helped me get here as well.
Wow, I really love everything you just said about that because even here I'm sitting here listening to you and that piece you just said, like being okay with not knowing, I feel like I have to have, in order to ask for help or in order to communicate, I feel like I have to have it figured out so that I can
Yeah.
get it. But
Mhm.
hearing from you, it's like you don't have to have it figured out. And that's the point. Like you need help because you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's honestly crazy. Like when you kind of realize that, and I think a biggest thing too, and this is kind of off topic, but I think it's important to say is like throughout this whole situation, I've had to sell houses, I've had to run a business. Um, I'm trying to think. I've had to figure out my taxes, figure out my health insurance. I'd have to figure out my phone. Like, I mean, it really was like my mom did all of that stuff for me. So I really had to figure it out on my own. And here I am as an independent person, like, oh, I can do it all. I can do it all. And it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do taxes. I don't know how to like switched my Verizon to AT&T and I don't know how to sell a house. Like I don't like let's figure out how to run a business that I don't really know what I'm doing. So it's all of these things and you realize like you go to that person. So I would go to my mom and have her, solidify how to do things. But as this has all happened, I've realized your parents, your uncles, your grandparents, your coworkers, your people that you're looking up to that you think they know everything. They have all the secrets in the world of how to get through life. Like they don't. Like it's been awesome kind of to like I remember asking, I don't know who it was. I asked someone, I'm like, so how do I do my like, I don't know, tax form or something like this? They were like, to be honest, like I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? I
you're
don't
an
know.
adult.
Yeah, like you're supposed to know everything. I thought you knew everything. I thought this is how you get through life. Like, what do you mean? Like, what's going on? And so that was like the biggest, like, whoa,
Oh,
your parents aren't actually like insanely experts about everything in life and how to go throughout life. Like they also
uh,
are a human being that is going through hardships too. So
mhm.
it's just that I think that piece has just been very mind blowing. And it's honestly, I'm extremely grateful to have like a different perspective, like going through life. So when I'm communicating with someone that I used to think is an expert at everything, like I'm giving them kind of the benefit of the doubt, like, okay, you actually might not know what you're doing, or you might be going through a really hard time too. Like, I don't know. So I think that's like a really cool thing that I've been able to kind of switch mentality wise and gain different perspective through a tragedy like this. So
I can definitely relate to this and hearing you say it, it's like such a weird thing that we can relate on, but it's like I'm
yeah.
so glad that I'm like, oh, that's a thing. Like, okay, wait, because hearing you talk about it, like different experience like of timing with my life, like when my dad passed, all of the things that you're talking about how you had to pick up and kind of take responsibility of. I'm grateful because my mom did that because I was a senior in high school going to be a freshman in college. So obviously I was not in any place to learn how to do taxes or run a
Yeah.
business. So I was
Yeah.
able to move, I was able to leave, go to Vegas, and she supported me and let me go to school. And I'm in my fourth year, last year, kind of finishing up here, but it's like all of those things my mom covered. And now looking back on it, because obviously having that happened at my age, I was so frustrated and mad at the world. Like
Yeah.
I've gone through something nobody else has gone through, and I have to push through. And on top of that, At that point in my life, it was I have to be a D1 athlete, not this grateful I get to do this. And so it was just kind of like, and then like you talked about, I just did volleyball because that's what I knew. So then trying to keep it as normal as possible, but then I was just so just not in a great place with a lot of because I don't know, my dad just died, but whatever. But it was just
Yeah.
kind of like I now, but he talking about it, it's like, wow, like I'm very grateful that my mom was there too. And my brother and sister, they also had to get the other end of it because they had to support my mom then because
Yeah.
my I had left. And so then my sister and my brother had to help my mom pick up everything else around that was happening at home. So
Mhm.
hearing you kind of on the other side of that, like being in that while doing
Yeah.
everything else you were doing is like so mind-blowing and again in awe, but just like,
It's funny because I look back at it and I'm like, I don't really know how I did it.
yeah,
Like,
that's crazy.
just kind of do it. Like, you just keep going. You don't have a choice. Like, you just
Literally.
don't. And sorry, I just have to add this. This
So
just reminds me of I remember when you went to college and your mom obviously had this like huge house to herself and had to like figure out everything. And I remember a lot of the dads and like daughters and stuff went over to your house and was helping your mom with the lawn. We were doing the
yes,
what were we doing? We were mulching. We were mulching the
yes, 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 yes.
it's small things like that, like you don't think about, but are like so challenging. And when you're in that
Yes.
position, like your mom doesn't want to go freaking mulch the yard. Like she has to do
No.
taxes and all the stuff revolving when someone dies. Like there's so much to it. And like just small things like that. Like if she was willing to open up her arms and let us all come mulch the yard. It probably looks like
Yeah.
crap because I was doing it. But anyways,
Yeah, OMG, I remember that. And I remember there was probably a couple different days, but I remember we were trying to host like another get together. And oh, this is something that I didn't realize like mom and dad roles, like having a family. Obviously, I
oh
became
yeah.
like I've like the dynamic has just switched because I remember before like my dad being there and like your dad coming and then like the dads are connecting, the dads are outside drinking whiskey or having a cigar or
Yep.
something, the moms are doing their own thing. And even setting up, it was just like, okay, normally the dad would do the mulch, the
Yep.
yard work. Because I remember my mom would say this, like my mom would say, okay, dad does the out cleans outside the house, I clean
Uh-huh.
the house.
Yeah.
And then having that like not there anymore, having it like we had to figure it out now. I was like, this is so interesting. And like, just like how you said, it's like there's no other choice. You just got to go.
Oh,
And it's like,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
I love how we can talk about this because
It's
it's so,
very, it's very like there's a lot of things that you can relate to people. And I think that's like the cool part about it is like everyone has their different experiences and whatnot. But like the more people can vocalize it, the more you realize like someone's dog that passed away the other day. Like I can relate to you, like I can communicate with you and like it's so different. It's completely different, but like
yes.
there's ways you can like kind of
Yeah.
relate to someone. And I think the more people vocalize it and talk about it and normalize it, the easier we can like help each other. Um,
Yeah. I'm so glad you added that just because I went to or I was on this panel for a mental health summit and I was kind of thinking about it like we're trying to destigmatize mental health. And it's
yeah.
like, how do you do that? It's literally just talking about it because
Yeah.
I remember I wanted to say like everyone's story is so unique. That's why we all need to share our stories because my situation is completely different from yours and everything that happened was completely different. But look how much we can relate and find connection on this just because we talked about it. Like if we hadn't talked about this, we wouldn't have known all the things that we had in common and being like, oh, and this and this and that and like just being able to connect on all these things is so I think so amazing.
Mhm. No, I could not agree more.
Um, I feel like we could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
I guess to keep moving through, I do want to ask, if you were a D1 athlete, kind of talk about the question is day in the life. So if you want to talk about that time, talk about a day in the life dealing with your mom, or if you want to talk about a day in the life now, like maybe the differences of being in that time versus post grad. Tell us about a day in the life.
Yeah. I guess I'll do a perspective of a day in the life when I was in college, in my master's, and then I'll do a day in the life now because they're very
Cool.
different.
Love it.
Okay, so I would say geez, I don't even know how I did this. So, this is going to be interesting. So, back in college, I would get up, I would go to classes. Typically, like in the middle of the day, I would either, I mean, we had a million like lawyer meetings, like work meaning the business my sister and I picked up. Like I would have work meetings, I would have to get on it to have like financial meetings, just something revolving around my mom. And she had 3 houses, so going to get stuff out of houses, like stuff like that in the middle of the day. I would go to practice, and then afterwards I would pick up on homework or, go run and do more stuff revolving around my mom. So that was kind of like the day in the life of being an athlete when everything went on. And then obviously when I took a break from that, it would be a lot of the same stuff minus the practice with more so going and doing a bunch of the stuff and then just adding therapy to that. So that would be kind of a day in the life there. A day in a life now. Wow, so different. It's honestly like this is funny. So I guess to preface this, I and I'm a consultant here in Atlanta. So take it with a grain of salt. The hours are a little bit longer than a normal job. Um, so typically, and I have a puppy, so let's add that into the mix
Oh.
because I just like to complicate my life. No, she's the best. Literally the best thing I ever did when I moved far away was get a dog. But I would say now, wake up around, I would say like 6. If I'm feeling up for it, I'll go work out. And then sometime around 7, I would shower, take the dog out for a walk, feed her. 7:45, walk to public transportation because never would I ever thought I would be taking public transportation. Let me preface that. But I realized Atlanta traffic is like LA traffic. I would sit in my car for an hour and a half to get to work, and I can't sit in the car for that long. So I now take public transportation. So I go there around 7:45, get to work around 8:30. Typically leave the office around 6:30 if I'm lucky. Come home at 7:30, eat dinner, take the dog for a walk. And I'm an early nighter, so I will watch TV and I will go to bed at like 9:30. I'm like a grandma now. Um, but yeah, that's a typical day in my life during the week. And like I said before, like still kind of trying to figure out what's my routine, what do I like to do workout wise, like I can do whatever I want. So like what am I doing? How do I kind of maintain a healthy lifestyle that I want? So yeah, there's a lot of unknowns still, but I would say that would be kind of my typical day in the life now.
I really love that, and I love hearing the differences
Yeah,
of what it
lots
was
of differences.
now. And like you mentioned earlier, I just love how you kind of lived in this. It's okay to be in the unknown and kind of figuring it out day by day and just kind of letting it
Mhm.
happen. I just really
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird period where you're like, all right, well, I can work out however I want. I don't even have to work out. Like it's just so like, what do I do? Like,
Yeah.
um, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm in my like again, I'm finishing up here, but I'm very excited and nervous for that time. And I feel like once I get there, it'll be okay. But it just like just that thought of like, wow, I could really just get up and not do something if I don't want to. Like that's so crazy to me right now. But
Yeah, it's crazy. And you'll definitely want to take advantage of it. I remember I don't think I worked out for like 2 months or something. Like I was like, I just need to do nothing. And I got like really involved in yoga and like loved it. Now
mm.
I'm kind of back into like, all right, I think I'm gonna lift some weights now. Like I don't know what's going on. I just go through these like really weird waves. I'm sure we'll talk about it when you get out of
Yeah.
college.
I kind of love that. Okay.
Uh,
Then my big question for you, given the time of your day, what you do, how do you feed your soul? How do you take care of yourself?
Yeah, that's a big one, and I'm still learning that. If I'm being completely honest, I'm still trying to figure out what feeds my soul.
I love that.
But I think right now, I mean, I love my dog. She's literally my joy of every day. Like when I come home, so really anything I do with her, taking her for a walk, I go get her pup cups all the time. It literally makes my day. Um,
Oh.
So really just hanging out with her is really filling me up right now. Going for walks, being outside, being in nature. I'm not sure if you went through this weird phase, but I know this is sometimes for people that are going through grief, but I went through a period where like I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like so cool this nature, like this is so cool this tree literally grew." Like I went through this huge weird phase where I just wanted to like be in nature and I thought it was like so cool and so filling. So I'm kind of like back on that wave. Like I just go and sit in the park with the dog and just kind of like watch people and love that. That's a big one. I think trying to stay in communication with close friends. I moved far away. And I don't have any like close friends from college. So just making sure I'm like going for a walk, calling friends, catching up with people, making sure I'm staying connected with people that I care about. Yeah, I mean, those are the things right now, but I mean, I'm still learning and things adjust all the time, like I said. Yeah.
I really love that answer because I think a lot of people, when I talk about my podcast or I talk about having or wanting people on, they say like, "Oh, I don't know because, I don't really know what I do to take care of myself." Like, or it's like, "Oh, I don't I do nothing." Like but that's okay. It's okay to not to have figured out. It's okay to be figuring it out. It's
Yeah.
okay to do nothing. It's okay to sit in the park with your dog, like whatever
Yeah.
it is that makes you feel better. And that's what I'm here to do. Like just kind of I want more people talking about it because I think it's important. And I loved your answer. I loved how you shared with us what makes you feel better. And like even if you think, oh, this sounds dumb, but it's like, no, that's what makes you feel better. And I love that.
Yeah. I think that's like the craziest part that I've like started to realize too is like you got to fill up your bucket, right? Like that's the point of life. Like fill up your bucket, have fun, like whatever, but like it's okay to not and like it's okay for the things that used to fill you up don't fill you up anymore. And I think that's like a really weird thing that I've kind of went through after college of being like, okay, like yoga really like filled my bucket for a period of time when I wasn't playing volleyball. And like that was what I loved. Like I loved doing that. And then I went through this period where I was like, I don't like doing yoga. Like I need to go for a run. Like I'm like angry, I need to run. And that was filling me up. And then it was like, I loved baking and then I loved being in nature. And it's like now I'm like, okay, well, none of those things sound fine. Like none of those things are filling up my bucket. So like what is going to? So it's like it's a work in progress. And I think it's totally okay to not know. And I think it's okay to continue to, learn. But at the end of the day, like it's the curiosity of what is filling up your bucket that's most important.
I'm not gonna lie, I think I really needed to hear that right now because in season right now it's like okay, we have Sundays off and I kind of put a little bit everyone who knows me, really you put pressure on yourself? Wow, like no way, like that's just something I do. And it's like oh, this is supposed to make me feel better. I have to do it. But it's like I love how you talk about it 'cause it's like no, it's okay if it's not and go do something else. It's fine. Like you don't need to make or put pressure on yourself trying to feel better. That sounds so dumb, but it's like just
No, it's such a good point. And it's so hard because when you find one thing, you're like, this is it. Like,
yeah.
this is what helps me. And then
Yes,
all
I
of a
figured
sudden
it
you're
out.
like, okay, well, now I have nothing. Like, let me figure out the next thing. Like,
Yeah.
this sucks. And it's okay for sometimes nothing to like, it's okay, like to not, nothing's filling me up right now. Like I am sad. Like this sucks. And like, yeah, that's fine. Like that's also completely normal. Like you're going to have days like that. I think it's
Mm.
just accepting those days and, figuring out the next day if there's something like there was a point of time and this would be beneficial for people that like maybe in their that kind of period of life. But like I literally created a notes document with I don't know who, like one of my friends, I think my boyfriend or something like that. And I would write a positive thing that happened in my day, like every day. So it
Oh,
was like as small as a person held the door open for me, and that's what made my day. Like, because sometimes that was the only thing that made me smile that day. And like, that's okay, but like, I need to acknowledge those things. And it's like the more you're aware of it, you're like, oh, that really made me happy. Maybe I should do that again. So yeah.
oh, thank you for adding that. I really like that. Okay, so I thought of this question as we were talking, but I also wanted to ask, like, we've both, I feel like we've gone through some pretty heavy experiences and have had to feel these really heavy emotions. And
Yeah.
so now I'm in a place of my life, like, obviously grief is an ongoing thing. It's not like completely forever healed, but it's like I'm in a better place, but I catch myself in these days where it's like I'm sad, but I kind of get mad at not mad at myself, but it's like why? Like I've been through worse. This is the life 3 years ago Livy would have loved, and I'm playing volleyball. I'm a senior. I'm enjoying my life. Like this is my favorite sport. I have a great family. I like my boyfriend and I are great. We have a dog. Like it's like my life is great. So why am I feeling kind of meh? Do you ever have any of those periods or have those
Oh
feelings?
yeah. Oh yeah, girl. That's normal. No, yes, 100%. It's so easy to put pressure on yourself. I think especially being an athlete, you're prone to put pressure on yourself. You want to perform at the highest level. You want to be happy. You want to get through grief. That's something that I thought I could just get through it. Like, oh, well, when you finish XYZ, you're done, everything's happy. Like, no, they're never coming back. Like, good luck, Hannah. Like, it's never an ending thing.
They're
Like,
never coming back.
it's like it sucks. And it's like something that you have to accept of like, okay, actually, this is an ongoing thing. And and trust me, like I'm saying all this stuff, I'm working on all of this stuff as we go. Like, I'm not perfect to not even close to being perfect. Like, I'm still struggling, like 100%. Um, but I think those days, like being okay with how you're feeling, like, and accepting it. Like, I think that's the hardest thing for me. Like, when I'm sad, I'm like, oh, I'm sad because, oh, I didn't perform well in work, or I didn't cook my food right. Or I always try to make some excuse
Yes, yes,
why
same.
I'm sad. Like, why am I sad and I'm mad? Oh, well, I didn't work out today. I'm so lazy. Like, no, like I'm not sad or mad about any of the things I try to tell myself. I'm avoiding what I'm actually sad and mad about. I'm avoiding what the issue actually is. And it's that I miss my mom. Like, I wish she was here. I wish I had my caregiver. I wish she could see me in Atlanta. I wish she could have XYZ. I'm sure you have the exact same thing. So it's like sometimes when you're randomly sad after a game or whatever on a Sunday, it's like you probably are sad because you wish your dad was in the stands. Like, as much as it sucks to like say or hear, like, yeah, like those are the things that you like, are trying to avoid, but it's like, ugh, like, okay, yeah, that's probably why. But it's like you're never gonna tell yourself that's what it is, right? Like it's like this whole like weird psychological thing. But I think as much as you can kind of accept the fact that like, okay, I'm probably sad, or like, why am I sad? Like, why am I actually sad? Why, like, what can I do to help me? And sometimes it's nothing, and sometimes it's sitting on the couch and just crying. Like, I don't know. But I think it's just accepting, like, it's okay that I'm not happy right now. Like, I am alive and I am breathing and I am living in this moment and I have a lot of things, like you said, but not taking those things as like more pressure. That was a very long-winded answer, but hopefully it kind of gave a little context.
Well, I loved every single part of that and glad you said all of it because it was like so,
Relatable.
so thank you, Hannah. Um, Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share or say or add or tell the listeners?
No, I'm just very thankful that you asked me to come on. I think what you're doing is amazing. I think it's something that a lot of people, want to do and strive to do, but for you to actually be doing this as you're an athlete and in school and going through hard things, like it's amazing. And I hope this, as much as you don't think it is, it's probably helping you and you're on your journey and throughout all your grief and all your issues and XYZ, how life is so hard. So I'm just super proud of you. And I know you say you listen to me, but like, I just feel so old that you're like about to go out of college. Such amazing things. I'm just so proud of you and I'm so excited to see how this podcast can just truly help so many people. And always happy to answer any questions or talk to anyone that may want to talk or whatnot. It's life sucks and life's so hard, but it's also so amazing that we're able to like live and do a bunch of cool things. So yeah, just super happy and thankful to be able to share a little bit of my story.
Oh, Hannah, thank you. And to the listeners,
Oh.
thank you so much for being here and listening in, and I'll see you guys next time on the next episode.